this Texas A&M team, especially up front, these guys will be coming to hunt. So, it's going to be a challenge on how they scheme to try to help the offensive line.
Welcome into TexAgs Rewind, presented by Specs here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. David Nuno and Ethan Jones just broke our microphone here on his debut with his stats. Ethan, what's up, buddy?
I don't know what to do with this new microphone. It's making me feel pressured,
this is a legit operation now.
I know.
And you just broke a $12,000 microphone.
Yeah, it's like imposter syndrome right now. I'm like, wait.
What am I doing here?
This is too professional now.
So typically when you join us, you give us some great stats. So you got a couple for us today. We'll start with one, we'll end with one. What's the first stat?
So I compared last year's first two games to this year's first two games. Pretty similar opponents, Miami and New Mexico last year. And so there's some things we did better, some things we did worse. But this year, our running game's been much better. We've averaged 240 rushing yards per game and 6.3 yards per carry. Last year, only 115 and 4.0 yards per carry. And then one more stat I want to talk about that is sacks and tackles for loss allowed. Only 6 this year, 12 last year. So twice as much last year. That really shows how much better the offensive line has been.
Yep, good stuff there. What was your favorite part of the show?
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch Ryan Broniger. That's the only part I watched.
So you didn't watch Coach Earley?
I didn't know.
Okay, you're done.
Yeah, I know.
Caitlin, favorite part of the show?
I really liked Coach Early, but I think my favorite was Lomas Brown.
Lomas Brown.
That was really
Didn't he feel like he was our friend?
Yeah,
he was
felt
great.
friendly.
Super Bowl champion. Kay, do you want to tell us what your favorite part of the program was, my friend?
My favorite part was Max Wright. I think Max Wright does a phenomenal job every time he comes on.
We love Max Wright. We also had Chris Doering from the SEC Network on the show. He also played at Florida, so 2 Florida alum guys on the program. It's the Rewind. Check it. How much attention do you pay to the University of Florida and everything going on with Coach Napier, DJ Lagway, the drama, the future, all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's been interesting, not just this year, but over since Coach Napier has gotten there, it's just been interesting to watch Florida. And I'm watching them from a distance, but, just kind of see how the program has kind of been struggling and, how we're trying to rebuild ourselves. And, man, when you get a star talent like DJ in the building, you have to do any and everything you can to make sure you have success with a guy like that. And it just seems like we're a lot of pieces away from that happening right now. So hopefully, man, things can turn around, and it's a big, big game coming up this Saturday.
Lomas, this is Olin Buchanan. From my understanding, one of the big problems for Florida is they don't have an offensive lineman like you that can be dominant. So how accurate is that? Is the offensive line a problem? And, oh, by the way, what do you think a win over Texas A&M do for Florida and for Billy Napier?
Oh, my goodness, man. Again, I'm on alumni thread. And, man, those threads hadn't been really friendly from the alumni. So, it's a lot of pressure on Coach Napier to kind of get things turned around. We know they have the toughest schedule, in college football this year. So, when you don't have an offensive line, when your offensive line inconsistent, when they're not playing well as a group, that just compounds the problem. And, this Texas A&M team, especially up front, these guys will be coming to hunt. So, it's going to be a challenge on how they scheme to try to help the offensive lineman out, because that's all you can do right now as an offense is to try to help your offensive line out. So maybe draw plays, maybe screen plays, things like that where the quarterback can get the ball out of his hands fast might be effective against Texas A&M.
The obvious storylines, the Billy Napier, the DJ Lagway, but when you think about what this game can mean for either program moving forward, a win and a loss, kind of take both paths for Florida and both paths for A&M.
Yeah, I think there's a huge sense of urgency that exists for both teams. Florida's a little different. The loss to Miami was embarrassing in so many ways. I think the biggest issue for Florida fans was that, hey, we got manhandled on the lines of scrimmage, and Miami's a team that's probably much built much like most of the SEC teams you play. So, not being able to be prepared for that game, not being able to hold up physically for that game, how does that project for the rest of the season, particularly within the SEC? And then, I think for the Aggies, you look at that Notre Dame loss after week 1. I said, hey, that's not a bad loss. You're probably going to see Notre Dame in the playoff, and then they lose to NIU, and I think that certainly changes the way we look at the week 1 loss to the Irish. So I do think there is a sense of urgency with the Aggies coming down here to Gainesville. It's going to be hot. It's going to be loud. It's going to be humid, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, man.
And how much of your opinion has changed on Connor based on the Notre Dame game, or is that Notre Dame game maybe just a bad day at the office for Connor?
You know this, man. It's easy to overreact, good or bad, to what you've seen in the first week. I got called out by Shane Beamer for overreacting to their offensive line being terrible in week 1. He said they weren't terrible. I still think that they were kind of terrible, but they were better against Kentucky. I'm not ready to freak out yet. Connor Wegman's only played a handful of games as a college quarterback, and so I think there needs to be a little patience there. But I think there was so much talk about him and what he could be and what this team could have been last year had he not gotten injured against Auburn, that anything short of what we had built up in our minds was going to feel like a failure. And then when you only throw for 100 yards and the offense struggles the way that it does, I think it further magnifies that. So I'm not ready to throw him out on the trash heap. I think he's a very talented quarterback. He just needs to get more reps and need to have more patience from the fans as to what this team can become, what the offense can become, and what he can become specifically.
What did you think of Connor when it comes to his poise, his presence, his footwork? Do you feel like we can turn the page on that first game, or are you still like, I think so, but let's see what happens against Florida?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he looked much better in that game. I think that he was really efficient. We didn't get to see a ton of him with him only really being in there for just over a quarter and a half. 11 for 14 with 125 yards is a solid outing for a quarter and a half. Just to think if he would have played the whole game, he would have been over 400 yards, which is great. But I think you definitely want to see him against some better talent and against SEC talent. And I think that this week is going to be the perfect chance for him to get to showcase, hey, that first week at Notre Dame was a fluke. That's not who he is as a player. That's not me. I know that he's coming in thinking that. I think that, this is definitely reassuring. And hey, Connor's the Connor that we know. But I'm definitely looking to see how he performs this week against an SEC opponent in the Swamp, big away game during a primetime slot. So I think that Connor's going to do great, and he'll showcase, who he is and who we thought he's been all along. I'm excited to see how he plays against Florida, and I think that it's going to be a big thing for him moving forwards.
How big is this game, in your opinion, for A&M? We know it's big for Florida because there's a lot at stake for Billy Napier's job and DJ Lagway potentially starting or becoming their future. But for A&M for this season, I think we'll all give Coach Elko a lot of grace regardless of what happens. But to make something of this season with what's still ahead, how important is this particular one?
Matt, I think it's huge. I think if you look at the past of what A&M's done in away games, we've struggled in away games. I mean, that was one of the things that was brought up in the press conference this week to Coach Elko, that the last time that we won an away game was whenever he was here. Or I think that's right. Yeah. So I think that
over 1,060 days.
Yeah, for 1,060 days. That's tough. And being a part of that, it was, frustrating. Felt like we were in games a lot and we're there down to the end, but we just couldn't get over that last little hump to win those away games. But I think that for that, and then also just Elko proving that, hey, this is a new era of A&M football. We're able to go into hostile environments against good teams and come out with victories. So I think that there's moving forward for the rest of this season, for us to make something of it, this is a big game for the confidence of our team, the confidence of our fan base, and for people to feel like hey, A&M's really a contender this year, not just a transition year for them. So I think that it's a big game, and everyone on that team knows that, and I think that they're going to come out ready to play.
How much of a transition was it from you being the assistant, where you hear about stuff happening with the team, academics, whatever, to now being the guy that has to answer the phone and answer all that stuff?
Yeah, it's definitely different, right? You you were a suggester over, decision maker, and sometimes you made decisions that became the final decision, but you didn't have to deliver them. And just, a new part of my life is worrying about pitchers, which is something I always cared about them, but I never worried about. Like every time they throw, I worry about them, just health and being, keeping them right. But yeah, it's definitely different, but in a lot of ways, I was doing it, just was not the final message.
Yeah, and then. What has it been like? How is Michael Earley, the head coach, trying to instill a culture, accountability to his group that, every coach that does that, I feel like, has a different personality with how they want to get that across. How have you gotten it across to your guys so far?
I think I'm super lucky in year one to have a ton of returners that know how we do things, because our culture and our structure were really, really good. So I'm doing what I've normally done. There are some differences, right? Especially with new guys who don't know me. Developing that relationship in the right way, because it is different now. But again, just super lucky to have the returners I have, and it's kind of been a seamless transition, and I can just kind of fill in where I need to fill in.
All right, we're going to close it out. Ethan, you've got one final stat for us. Yeah, let's go with offensive line again, because that's been the most positive thing. Against Notre Dame, we only allowed 2 QB hits. Against McNeese State, 0. And then we have allowed 1 sack each game, which ranks 32nd in the nation. And the last time A&M allowed 1 sack or less in back-to-back games was in 2021. Good stuff. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And Torniak, tell the people what to do. Your favorite nickname, right?
Yeah, I thought.
Have you come to a point that you kind of like it or no?
No. I was going to say it's growing on me, but I don't think
You're
it
lying.
is.
Yeah, you're just not.
Well, like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends.
There you go. We'll see you next time. It's TexAgs Rewind.